What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Happy Veterans Day. We are here at the Popcorn Talk Network talking movies today. We are going to talk about a sweet movie that is factually incorrect. It's called Pearl Harbor. We're very excited about it. We're going to see you guys in just one quick second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movie. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
I want to make it very clear, nobody cleared the bald eagle sound effect with us in our
Not
intro.
at all. Never.
I could not love it more.
I think it's perfect.
It's brilliant.
I see like it flying through the mountains and then it landing here at the studio.
It's
and
one of the best creative decisions anybody not us on this show has ever made.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
What an interesting day. I'm so glad you introed the show the way that you did, because it needs to be known that we actually forgot that Veterans Day was on a Monday, and so we're not doing the Action Guys later today, and it was either Midway or Pearl Harbor, which now makes so much sense that Midway was released.
Yes, and there are so many things about this week and doing Pearl Harbor on the show. Andrew and I had an over-under when the show started of how many live viewers we would have. I guess 22.
You're winning.
He guessed.
I said 22 is the number at it because the live numbers have been up, and you went under. We are, in fact, under at the moment.
There's not a lot of love for this movie outside of one man.
Yeah, and it's not even Alec Baldwin.
No, it's Mr. Richard Eric Jarvie, a senior staff member of Action Army. He's going to be calling in today, talking about this movie as well as an upcoming project that he has been working on that we're excited to sort of talk about with him a little bit today.
Definitely.
So yeah, we are here on the Popcorn Talk Network talking about action movies, and we are covering Pearl Harbor. I want to make it clear before we get into any of the intros, before we talk about any of the things about this movie, how this came to pass, because I think it's very important, even before the social shout-outs.
It's kind of like that movie. A series of unfortunate events.
Lemony Snicket's.
Except for it's me.
Would you prefer to be covering Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events?
I can't remember if I've seen that movie or not. I think I've seen part of it on TV and it was kind of enjoyable, but probably.
So yeah, guys, we look ahead of time by about 8 weeks usually. We plot out the next 2 months, sometimes 3 months of the shows.
Yeah,
both shows, and we try to do our best to link the shows. We'll pick a movie for AMA. We'll pick a movie for the Action Guys. We like the topics to link up. We look at the releases. We figured, okay, Roland Emmerich, he's directing the World War II movie. It's called Midway. We liked a lot of the actors involved. I mean, Midway's got Woody Harrelson. It's got Ed Skrein.
I like Ed Skrein. We also love Roland Emmerich. Like
big fans.
Even if we're not the biggest fans of all of his movies, there's just something about the Roland Emmerich feel that we love, and he directed The Patriots, so yeah.
He's directed a lot of movies that are sweet. So we just assumed it would be hard to imagine Midway being so far in the middle. It figured it would either be terrible or it would be awesome. And so we put it on the schedule. And there was a scheduling mishap with Lionsgate and the screenings for this film. They both literally fell during the time of last week's AMA. We could not watch the movie. We would have missed last week's show to watch the movie. So what ended up happening is we saw it over the weekend. And the thing about Midway, and I'll do a first thoughts review. I've intended to do it on the Action channel, but I didn't yet, is that it's entirely based on real characters and real events. They introduce all the real characters. At the end of the film, they have like actor's face
and the picture, the classic,
to the real person. And they're like, this is who this person was, and this is what happened. He was awarded this award. Like, you know, all of them
Silver
are real.
Star.
Yeah, the Silver Star. Except for Nick Jonas. He's not a real person. Or Nick if he Jonas was, he doesn't get immortalized on screen that way.
Was he good?
He's in the movie for like 4 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's good in the 4 minutes. That was the basic problem in the movie. It's an hour and 50, and they try to have like 13 leads.
Right, and everyone needs to have their 7 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
All of a sudden, you're out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, you know, the first thing is we already said it, but like we salute our veterans here. Happy Veterans Day.
Yep.
That's far more important than Midway the movie, and it's far more important than Pearl Harbor the movie. It's an actual real thing of real people that did serve our country, did amazing things, and Pearl Harbor the movie is not about that. Pearl Harbor is about the real event, and there are things in Pearl Harbor that happened in real life. We don't know how dramatized some of those things are in the movie. But, you know, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think Danny and Rafe are real people.
No, I mean, I'm pretty sure Pearl Harbor is just a complete fictionalization of the event and like just using parts of it that we know are true, whereas like Midway is based off real people, and it feels like no matter what was going to happen today, we were going to be poking fun at one of the movies we were going to be covering, whether it was Midway or Pearl Harbor, and it just felt much more appropriate to poke fun at Josh Hartnett and Ben Affleck as a heartthrob and Alec Baldwin doing his Alec Baldwinness.
His Alec Baldwin thing, son.
And just Michael Bay than the other options. So here we are.
So we are going to be talking about Pearl Harbor today. Midway was enjoyable enough if you like that sort of movie, but didn't feel like it was far enough in either direction to... Didn't want to take a dump on it, didn't want to praise it greatly, so we're just going to say, you know, we salute our veterans. We're going to talk about Pearl Harbor today.
Yes.
This is Action Movie Anatomy here on the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies, all things movie-related, and pop culture by the bucketful. My name is Ben Bateman. That's Andrew Ghai. If you want to follow along the conversation, say what's up in the live chat, leave your thoughts. If you want to follow along with anything that we are doing, you follow the Popcorn Talk, subscribe, like, comment. Go check our stuff out. Action Industries. We're Action Industries everywhere. On Instagram, youtube.com/Action Industries. Team Action Show on Twitter, because it's the oldest account of all.
Yeah, it's the original. And also Team Action on Patreon, patreon.com/Team Action. Speaking of Patreon, we got two big shout-outs. One to Andrew Swift and Philip Gustafson. As always, we salute you. Thank you so much for your patronage. Thank you so much for checking out patreon.com/Team Action. We'll be talking a little bit more about our action face-off that we had this last weekend. We also got another one coming up this weekend. But we've got a few things that we're going to be covering on the show today.
Yes, 100%. So coming up on the show today, we are going to be talking about overly sieged, underly sieged, properly sieged, Alec Baldwin. We're going to be talking about that because I think Alec Baldwin's had a really interesting career, and I think it's worth talking about. He's a unique career, I think is the best way to say it.
Incredibly unique, yeah.
So I think he'll be interesting to talk about. We're both kind of curious about Josh Hartnett's career and exactly what happened. We were having an off-camera conversation, so we're going to be asking the question to you guys. Will Josh Hartnett have an A-list comeback? Do you think it'll happen? We're going to try to answer the question ourselves, as well as all the other games you guys like. Thesis Statement, Fist Pump Moment, Favorite Line, all those things. Oh, I can't wait to hear your favorite line.
I think I actually have a couple good ones written down.
I got a good one. I got a good one, too. Yes, we cover action movies on this show. Rule number one of these shows' rules are the hero always plays by their own rules. Who's the hero of this movie? The Courage of America?
The Courage of America. I guess the hero is Ben?
I think it's just America.
I think, okay, all right.
I don't think you could make an argument that it's either of those guys. They're fake characters.
They're fake characters, and they also, like...
To say that the story of Pearl Harbor's heroes are fake people is like... This is like...
Again, that's like why we gotta just say Pearl Harbor is this movie. It's not... We can't be talking about the event. Because if we have to pick a hero in this movie, it really does feel like the hero... is Ben, right? You follow him the most. He's the original love story. He's the one that you think dies, which also back when this movie came out, did you think that Ben died? Because I didn't. And I wasn't even like a hardcore movie fanatic then.
You just knew.
I just knew. I was like, there's no way that guy died yet.
And
it's not like Ryan Reynolds in Life on the cover.
He shoots through the roof of his plane. You're like, there's no way.
Yeah. There's just no way he's gonna die. So I thought that was a very interesting thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then obviously how the movie ends, you're with Ben. So
yeah, rule number two, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people, beings, things, dinosaurs in the room. I mean, I think in this movie, actually, if you're saying America and Japan are the hero and the villain, maybe.
Sure, okay.
I think that there is some truth to the way because America gets to have the sort of last laugh in some ways. With
whereas
the raid.
Japan caught us off guard.
Yeah, they are. And is it General Yamamoto? I wish I remembered his name because I just saw him fictionalized in 2 movies back to back.
What was the other one?
Midway.
Oh, yeah.
And he looks. They cast actors that play him similarly, and he has similar lines. I feel all we've done is awaken a sleeping giant. He says that in both movies. It must be a real quote.
Yeah.
And the way he has the line in Pearl Harbor, what is it? A truly great general or a truly great commander would find a way to not fight a war.
Yeah, something like that.
So there is the idea that Japan. They actually don't make Japan seem in the way that Michael Bay sometimes does with.
Yeah, he didn't really villainize him that much.
No, he shows their side of it, which I think is actually smarter by him than I'm used to.
I actually agree with that. I think I kind of liked. I was expecting them to be not quite wearing the rice paddy hats, and being really, really ridiculously over the top racist as Michael Bay usually does. I actually thought he really painted him well. Yeah, it really did. And I think you see the side of it. You see what they're going through. You see why they're going to do it.
They say they've cut off our oil supply.
Yep.
So. Rule number 3, the movie is driven by police, military, political, or mercenary figure. That fits the rules. They're in the military. And rule number 4, the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion. I think Michael Bay blew up a small country to make this movie.
Yeah, really. There are so many explosions in this movie, and that's the one thing that you really have to give the credit to Michael Bay is that he knows how to make an action scene pop.
20
he
years,
really does.
20 years later, I think a lot of that stuff has held up really well, which is impressive. So we're going to talk about all of that. I think we just jump straight into...
Oh, we're at 28. Look at that.
Wow.
Whammy noon.
Whammy. Keep using that joke.
I'm going to use it forever.
Eventually you'll have to explain it.
Never will.
So we are going to get into the very first piece of this show, Ed. It's Thesis Statements. Your biggest, boldest thought about the movie. If this movie ever comes up, this is what you say about it. This is the thing you say. This is what Pearl Harbor is about. This is why the movie Pearl Harbor is good or bad, or should be the greatest, the first, the only, the last. We don't like to just be like, this is my favorite Josh Hartnett movie from 2000 earlies.
Or 2000 earlies.
Are you having
that guest
trouble?
is not coming back.
So I'm going to jump in first and say mine because I thought this while I was watching. By the way, Ryan Nilsson's up in the booth. Did we turn on the AC or not?
AC is coming on immediately.
Actually, Ryan,
we did not turn it on.
if you could turn the heat on, that would be great. It's funny how the tables have turned, Ben. It's really funny how the tables have turned.
My playoff beard is it's hot.
It keeps my face warm.
It's warm.
Oh,
AC's coming
speaking
on.
of playoff beard, first of all, you and I did very bad in fantasy football this week.
Yeah, it was
We're in the
bad.
same league, but you're obviously in a good position. I was in third. You were in first.
You know
I think I'm
you know
gonna.
who's pleased about that?
I'm sure Jeff Burns is.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Kevin Smith's. He's going to be harassing us.
Oh, I know. He beat both of us.
He's going to be harassing us via Super Chat for the next, 3 months.
His record is garbage, but he's beaten both of us, and we're in the top
He's
three.
so
He's
pleased
so
with himself.
pleased. But what I was going to say is the Niners and the Seahawks play each other tonight. It's a big game.
I've already told you this, but I'm supposed to be in Charlie's Angels at 7. The game starts at 5:30.
I mean, that you're gonna be like that dad with the phone in his pocket and the earbuds on, watching the game at his daughter's recital.
Maybe I'll go check in for the screening and go to the bathroom.
Where did he go?
I don't know.
Your thesis statement.
My thesis statement about this film is Alec Baldwin's the best part of the movie Pearl Harbor. It's not even that he's necessarily good. It's not even necessarily that... it's that Alec Baldwin did this one thing in his career really well. He was extremely good at doing this one thing.
You can't outact me, boy.
Right. They make fun of him, hilariously enough,
Yeah.
in Team America. And it's something about the tone of his voice. It's something about the way that when he talks, his voice kind of drops to this register. And it's just something about, there's he's very, very, very masculine in this smooth kind of, almost like he's spoofing being masculine way.
Well, it's weird because it's the best things about Alec Baldwin's career is in the first half is how seriously he took himself.
Yeah.
And in the second half, it's how well he can make fun of himself.
Right. And this feels like the transition moment where he's just tailing out of being a leading man, right? So you have movies like Miami Blues, and you have movies like Hunt for October. And
you're right.
A lot of the 80s stuff and the 90s stuff. Glengarry, obviously, is his probably most iconic performance. And then you get into this period where you can see he's starting to put on a couple pounds.
Yeah.
He's not quite
the leading man, chiseled sex icon that he used to be.
Right. And then, the Basinger stuff happens, his career tailspins. He comes back in the back half in this other way. And there's something about Alec Baldwin in the moments when he's delivering his speeches that he just feels like he's like Jerry B for me in this movie. That's
Right.
what he feels like watching for me. He's ultimately enjoyable in a way that Ben Affleck cannot pull off. He doesn't have the it that Alec Baldwin has.
Yeah.
Josh Hartnett doesn't have the it. Honestly, watching Midway, the same exact character that is played by Aaron Eckhart, Doolittle, is played in Midway by Aaron Eckhart.
Or you mean Alec Baldwin is Aaron Eckhart?
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's the real person who led the raid. He's good. Eckhart's good. He's just not Alec Baldwin. He's taking it more seriously. He's
Right.
He's a more real performance.
Even though Alec Baldwin is taking himself incredibly seriously, he's taking himself so seriously it seems silly.
This is the Michael Bay-eyes version of what a war hero, a real historical war hero, actually is.
'Cause Pearl Harbor sucked, and I miss you.
He's got good speeches. He just has all these. He's given all these sweet
He's always
lines.
squinting so much.
He's given all these sweet lines. There's that whole speech he has at the end where he's like, "Well, I can't tell you what to do, but I'll tell you what I would do." And he's like, I wasn't made to be captured.
I was made to be captured.
He just Ryan, how do you feel about Alec Baldwin? Have you had a love affair with his career at all, or no?
I think he has a very fascinating career in that he hasn't been really stuck in the same thing at any particular time. The past 5 or 6 years, he's been doing a lot of comedy, especially with SNL, just having a complete revival to his entire career. I'm an Alec Baldwin fan. Like you said, Glengarry Glen Ross, that is the iconic moment where you're like, wow, this guy can take command of a scene. But he can also, I think, laugh at himself. And I think that's really refreshing.
But even Drew and I, we didn't review it because have a tendency to not post reviews for movies we don't like.
Yes.
Yeah, but we watched Motherless Brooklyn, the new Ed Norton movie,
And he's like the bad guy, right?
He's kind of the best part of the movie, though.
Yeah.
He's kind of got all the best scenes, and like even now,
God, that movie was so forgettable.
yeah, it's crazy, crazy how bad that
We
movie
were
was.
sober when we watched that,
Fully sober.
and I remember almost zero about it.
Yeah. You weren't even playing Clash Royale. You were
I wasn't.
literally in a
I
theater.
was sitting there locked in, and I could not tell you almost anything about that. Okay, so your thesis is that Baldwin is the best part of all the movie.
He's just the only other argument would be that the big explosive war scenes, but I think the problem with that is that as time goes on, as good as those things feel now, and they've aged very well 20 years later, they're a little diminished now compared to some of the stuff we see. In 20 more years, I think he'll still be the best part, and I think the war stuff will get even a little worse.
I pose 2 counters to you.
All right.
First one is Kate Beckinsale.
She's great.
Yeah,
Big fan.
but you think that he's still better?
Yeah.
I fell in love with her in this movie. I remember
too.
watching this when I was like, what? How old were you? Like 13?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it come out? 2000?
2001? I think 2001. And the other is, what about the score from Hans Zimmer?
Yeah,
It's actually really sweet.
great. I was whistling it all morning today.
Yeah, it's really badass, and that's kind of, someone in the chat said like that's what happens in these movies at the time, is you would have these crazy, ridiculous blockbuster action movies with sick scores.
Yeah, it's like
it's just perfect. It's just that driving force. Okay, so now that you got your thesis out of the way, and it's nice and positive, I'm gonna put mine out there. This is the greatest. This is a piece of shit. I was waiting for that. This is the greatest example of what a decent Hollywood director, I'm going to put quotes up because Michael Bay is a director in quotes, can do with $140 million based off of a real event and tell this story. It's the greatest show of contrast between a truly great director in Steven Spielberg and what he did with D-Day and Saving Private Ryan 2 years before with half as much money. So there has never been a greater contrast in lack of budget and lack of storytelling ever in something that actually happened in a war scenario than Michael Bay in 2001 directing Pearl Harbor and Steven Spielberg directing Saving Private Ryan in 98.
So are you saying that Saving Private Ryan's a better film than Pearl Harbor?
Is that what you're trying to tell me? It's just crazy. Like, how many times do you tear up when you watch Saving Private Ryan? Don't say it. Don't say Pearl Harbor. How many amazing moments and stories in there? How many incredible battle scenes that still hold up are in that movie? How many great moments of levity and storytelling are in that? And then you look at Pearl Harbor. It's longer, twice as much money. It's just shocking.
It is astounding. We got a super chat in here. Super chat from Lucas Shashek, best from the world. All right, I have to run to the gym, but I'll watch the rest of this later. I love watching guys suffer through talking about this movie. Lucas, thank you. Popcorn Talk, the studio, who the super chats go to, thanks you. We appreciate that, and I enjoy that also.
Yeah,
because it is wonderful to watch through.
It's funny.
I'm having a good time.
It's funny for me.
Yeah, I think so. I will say, like, something I've really tried to focus on with movie reviews since we started doing it is putting, like, movies in boxes, right? We talked about this off camera, but we watched Ford Ferrari, and it's, like, probably both of our, like, top 3 of the year, top 5.
It's very good.
It's great. It might honestly just be my favorite movie the more I've thought about it. I really loved it. And it's a PG-13 racing movie. It's great on all levels.
Yep.
But it's not asking you to do very much compared to, like, a lot of other movies that get released around Oscar time each year. You look at a movie like Moonlight, totally different movie, right? It
speaks on so many different layers of social issues and actually storytelling and
it's representative of the kind of thing that mainstream films that win Best Picture or even get nominated really don't speak on. Like, it has leads that are not just white men. Like, there are so many things about it, right?
Yeah.
So again, you contrast those things, but it's like, I'm okay being somebody who enjoys Ford Ferrari. It doesn't have to be the movie I like every time. So by the same contrast, it's like, I can acknowledge all the flaws that go along with Pearl Harbor. This movie is 3 hours and 4 minutes, and there is enough romance in this movie to literally make a 90-minute romantic movie, like a romance with zero war, with zero conflict, with zero killing or planes or explosions. Michael Bay could have cut off 90 minutes of this movie and had enough movie to just be a romance.
Or he could have just done it in 2 movies. You could have just had a 2-movie thing where one's the rom that sets up the love, and then the second movie is the battle, and then you get the payoff of what happens. But like, also the other thesis I had is it's the worst romance story ever told. Guy A falls in love with girl, woos her, gives us an hour and a half of love. He dies.
Tell me more.
His best friend hooks up with his lady when he's dead.
It's been 3 months.
Hey, yeah, it's been months. Not years, months.
Yeah.
It's been, isn't that what her friend says? It's been 3 months.
It's been 3 months.
You're like, yeah, he died. Jesus Christ.
You have to move on.
It's the 40s. You're going to die in 10 years. And then best friend since childhood, shacks up with the lady, then he comes back from the dead, then they get in a fight, then he dies, and then you raise his kid. Like,
you're forgetting, you can't die, Rafe, you're gonna be a daddy.
You're gonna be a daddy, you can't die.
And you're dead.
And you're dead. What an idiot.
I get my girl back. Don't worry, Danny, I'll name her after you.
Yeah, it was a Japanese guy that shot him. Positive.
Yeah, somebody in here says, Jim W. I had the 2 VHS special edition collection of this movie. I had the 4-disc DVD collection of this movie. I love this movie. So it's a good thesis. It's a great thesis.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I love, we were just talking about Baldwin. I'll save it because we'll get to it when we talk about his career a little bit more. So those are our thesis statements, guys. Share yours in the chat here. You see, he's laughing. I knew you'd have a good time.
Oh God, this movie.
I knew we'd have a good time. Big shout out on here to members of the Action Army. I went and guested on SEN Live for the first hour today.
Oh yeah.
And while I was on for the first hour today, Christian Harloff realized that his computer he was running the show off of is dead. It died. So he's going to have to go buy a new one today to run the show off of. And call to action, the team donated a significant donation to help get the show running.
Wow.
So, and he shouted him out. The Action team is always strong. You guys are absolutely the best in the whole world. So big shout to Action. We love you guys. Thank you for being so generous.
You guys really are the most amazing people in the world. And I didn't even tell you, but Joaquim Oliveira, he's got something in the mail for us.
Really?
He's sending him to the studio here. I don't know what it is, but
cool.
It's just, you guys are the absolute best. So let's move on. Let's move on to another, one of the best parts of the show, and especially for this movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty perfect.
This is good. Fist bump moment?
Yeah.
I got so many.
Yeah,
I have
really?
so many.
Okay.
Yeah, fist bump moment. This is the moment something happens in the movie. You look around, you're kind of like, are you seeing this right now? I'm so excited. I'm going to actually, right now, 220 episodes into this show, I'm going to rebrand the way that I explain fist bump moment.
Oh my God. All right, let's do it.
I have one thing to add. We sometimes will allude to this, but this is what fist pump moment is. Fist pump moment is the moment when something happens when I'm watching this movie without Drew, when I feel the need to pause it and call him or text him about the movie.
Yeah.
It happens 1 in 2, 1 in 3 movies, but that is the greatest distinction now of what fist pump moment is, because that's how I feel about it. I paused this movie.
You're like, he has to know how much I like this moment when he watches it. How much it meant to me.
It's because there's no one else who has the sense of humor about this stuff as similar to mine as Drew, and I think vice versa, having watched literally thousands of hours of movies together and spent thousands of hours talking about movies together. It's just hard to imagine anybody else would think shit that I think is as funny as much as he would think shit is funny.
Yeah.
That's what fist bump moment is for me.
Those are some smooth aces.
Oh, don't steal my lines.
I went back and watched it. I went back and watched it just for you.
It's so ridiculous.
It's so dumb.
He says it and you're like, somebody actually agreed that should be left in the film? That was...
Also, they almost just died.
It's so bad. It's just Top Gun.
I thought it was hilarious, too, because they were like, two $90,000 war machines?
No, he says he's
$40,000.
A $45,000 airplane.
$45,000 airplane. I'm like, holy shit, my car cost that much. But yeah, so that's that. Do you want to go first with your fist pump moment? Because I have one.
Well, I'm
here.
going to save mine because I think we got to let our special guest who's on the line right now.
Oh,
go
he's
first
here.
With his.
Oh,
we got a very
God.
special guest. We owe a salute to Richard Eric Jarvie from Estonia, one of the OG Action Army members, senior staff member,
legend,
host of Class Action. Jarvie, how you doing?
You know, Jack, we may lose this battle, but we're going to win this war. You know how I know? Because they're rare. And at times like these, you see them stepping forward. There's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer, Jack. Give me another fish sandwich.
What's up, guys?
Yes, the fish sandwich. Okay, I remember that line happening.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so sweet and then so dumb.
Because he says the fish sandwich thing.
No, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. What is he talking about? But it's just because of those guys,
There's
right?
37 people watching.
I know. I don't know. So, Jarvie, as you can tell, we're a bit split at the table here about how we enjoy the movie. Ben obviously is more on your side. I am obviously more on the side of a logical human being. So, talk to us a little bit about your favorite movie here, man.
Oh my God! I think I got to start off with my thesis, and I got to say this is the most cinematic movie ever made.
Wow!
And that's just because of how Michael Bay shoots an action movie. It's,
coming in hot.
Every shot is like it's got motion in it. It's got like the best. It's almost like overlit. The special effects. You can tell there's a lot of practical effects in this. You can tell where the CGI, but there's a lot of practical effects. And you said it before, the effects hold up amazingly.
Yeah,
he does do a lot of stuff in here. That's stuff that we're used to seeing, obviously, in all his movies from this time period. But like stuff that I remember from the trailer that actually still worked for me, like when the planes are flying over the kids that are like playing baseball and stuff.
Yeah, they're really low flying planes.
Looks real.
That stuff's really cool.
Yeah,
I mean, that stuff's really good. And a lot of the stuff, he also, obviously, Jarvie leans into the stuff like the slow-mo guys, the Doolittle guys walking on the runway with the airplanes over them. That's just
So
straight
many
up
slow-mo.
That just is Armageddon, actually.
That's
But like,
from Armageddon.
Yeah. But I agree. A lot of this movie is really beautiful. We talked about the bomb flying from overhead.
Yeah, the bomb drop, like when you go up into the Japanese bomber and it follows the bomb all the way down into the ship and it goes into the cook, like right next to the cook. Like that is awesome. I really like that. And yeah, the explosions are just massive. And Michael Bay is always almost comically is overlit every scene that he's ever shot.
Yeah.
But the thing is that in high budget, crazy ass action movies, especially when you start throwing robots in, overlighting it looks awesome.
Yeah, right.
It really, really does. So you really think this is the most cinematic movie of all time? I mean, we obviously know that's incorrect, Jarvie.
I love the fact that, like, okay, I got to ask this. How in hell, Ben, did you get Drew to sign off on this?
Well,
I got to know.
It's honestly, it was a little bit, if you watched the beginning of the show, you heard sort of the confluence of events. We felt it was extraordinarily disrespectful to make fun of Midway. We didn't think that movie was good enough to do on the show. And because of the nature of the way the screenings worked out, we would just sort of do a lukewarm, I think we would just do a middle-of-the-road review. And
Yeah.
you guys, some of you guys remember from watching older episodes, there have been middle-of-the-road movies we've covered. Like The First Mechanic's a great example where we like it enough. We don't dislike it enough or like it enough to really want to talk about it for an hour. And those episodes tend to be less entertaining. They're harder to get through.
And it was the option. I got the option. It was either I could go watch Midway and decide that we do it on the show or just cover Pearl Harbor. So I picked my own poison. I did this to myself. I was like, no, we'll just do Pearl Harbor. We'll have fun.
Jarvie, I'm going to be honest. I came home from Midway. I turned on the first hour of Pearl Harbor. I saw the Smooth Aces line, and I was sold. I was sold.
I was exactly the same. Exactly the same. The first thing I did when I got home after Midway was I put on Pearl Harbor.
God, Jarvie, what was the first time when you saw this movie? Do you remember the first time you saw it?
Yes, this is actually one of the reasons why I love it so much as well. It was in 2003 when it came out. I went to see this with my father at like an old school cinema. I remember exactly the way we both were mesmerized by this movie. We didn't consider this a historically accurate movie. I still don't.
Yeah.
I get a lot of shit from people for loving this movie. I don't care. This is not even a guilty pleasure movie for me. This is just something I love shamelessly.
Well,
Yeah.
it's really. Sorry, go ahead.
That's fine.
I was going to say, it's really funny because Ryan was also telling us that he went and saw this movie with his dad, and his dad thought it was absolutely fucking insane. He's like, oh, I saw the USS Arizona when I was in Hawaii, and like all this stuff. And it is crazy when you have that picture painted for you by your father figure, or like even just going with your dad and watching this movie. And if he thinks it's cool, you think it's cool.
Yeah.
Whereas like, my mom liked the first half of this movie.
Right. I don't remember, like I try to go back to my memory of being 13 and thinking about the kind of movies I decided to go see and who I saw them with. Like, I saw movies with my dad for sure. I don't think this was one we saw together, but this movie looked sweet enough that I knew I needed to see it in theaters for some reason.
Yeah.
I definitely saw this in theaters.
I don't think I did. I can't remember.
Yeah, so Jarvie, I disagree with you a little. I think it is more of a guilty pleasure for me, but I do really enjoy it. So we want to make sure we cover everything on the show. So Jarvie, we got to know, what is your fist pump moment?
Okay, except for Alec Baldwin, it's one of the moments where the bombing of Pearl Harbor is happening, and Rafe and Danny have gotten their planes off the runway, and they've pretty much shaken off the Japanese planes, and they come out of the smoke and they go into the fight, like chasing the Japanese, like going to shoot them down. And this patriotic, Hans Zimmer's score is one of the biggest reasons why I love this movie as well. So as they go through the cloud, a patriotic theme comes on, and it's on. They're going after them. It's on.
Shameless. I love it so much.
The music is it's one of the best scores that Hans Zimmer has done, and I seriously believe that.
It's an incredible score.
Michael Bay could hear you talk about this movie, he'd be like, "That's exactly what I was going for. That's exactly the picture I was trying to paint."
Yeah, get this man a medal.
Get this man a medal.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that's your fist pump. What's your favorite line, Jarvie?
Okay, my favorite line's kind of funny because I've said this so many times when I'm in front of a mirror, and when it's one of the side characters, and he goes like,
"Smooth aces.
Man, am I going bald back here? Oh, you are one good-looking son of a bitch. Don't you ever die."
That's good.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it is a pretty ridiculous movie. So, Jarvie, we're going to get back to the show. Richard Eric Jarvie has a show coming up. We're going to be premiering the pilot episode here pretty soon. It's called Class Action. It's a show. It's similarly related to the Action brand. He and Paul Denuzio, who you guys all know, Richard and Paul are going to be doing a weekly show on Action Industries. We're trying out the format right now, so stay tuned. Look out for that on youtube.com/Action Industries. Subscribe now if you haven't already. And Jarvie, thank you so much for calling in. We, sir, salute you.
As always, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this movie, and big shout out to Paul Denuzio, my action brother. Thank you, guys. Have fun. Enjoy the rest of this review.
Thank you, brother. Take care.
All right, so fist bump moment. So I got I'm jacked up. So there's stuff in this movie that I think is super sweet. I think for me, watching it again, I definitely had the same fist bump I hoped I was gonna have.
Okay.
And it's Cuba Gooding Jr.
Okay.
And it's it's a little bit melodramatic when he does the moment, but I still really liked it.
When he salutes the dead captain?
No, it's so he's like, it's great because they set it up with not very many scenes. He's in the boxing scene, which is like, whatever. You could have honestly, a good director would have had like a slow-mo, you would have like pulled in on the ship and you would have seen like scenes from the boat and you would have had him boxing slow-mo.
Like, and just a quick pass by.
And you probably wouldn't even acknowledge what was happening. And then he would have had a conversation with the captain later when he would have established what he was doing.
Exactly.
And the captain then would have told him he was proud of him. And that would have actually been a better use because the scene of him boxing is basically useless. It just is like,
just like, look at this guy get his ass kicked for a while, but he's a movie star, so he's gonna win.
Yeah, it's just that stuff that movies do that's just like, this is not necessary. But nonetheless, Cuba, he's like talking to the captain, and because after he talks to Beckinsale, and she's like, your mom wouldn't let you do the fire guns or whatever. He's like, no, but I wanted to serve. And then he's talking to the captain, and he's like, the captain's like, I hear it's not luck, son. Ship's proud of you, and it shows Cuba's reaction.
Yeah,
and you're like, for whatever reason, it actually feels like something. It's like one of those moments.
Yeah, there's not many of them, so.
No, there's not a lot of moments like that in this movie. It's more significant than anything that happens with Rafe and Danny, basically. They're to me, basically nothing characters in this movie. Like, I don't really enjoy anything they do.
No, that's the other thing. It's like they're just not enjoyable leads.
No, they're fine, but like basically everything that they're in is useless.
Yeah.
Even them fighting in planes is fine.
It's fine.
It's better
but
when
also,
Affleck's fighting.
Hartnett, like, does this a lot.
Yeah. It's honestly better when Affleck's fighting in England than when he's home. But like whatever. So Cuba then has this big moment when the bomb goes off in the ship and shit, all hell's breaking loose because this is the most intense scene in the movie. People are dying left and right, and he like sees the captain after the explosion goes up, and the captain's doing the thing where like you realize, okay, he's gonna be dead in like 40 seconds, like he's bleeding out.
Yeah.
The captain's like, get my XO, make sure these guys are, and Cuba like grabs him. He's like, everywhere is exactly where they need to be, Captain. You trained us well. You trained us well. And it's like it's pretty overacted in the sense like Bay was like, do it bigger, son.
Bigger, go bigger.
But like I still love it. It still teared me up a little bit when he did it. I still was totally in. And I was like, this is like exactly the combination of cheese and like payoff that this movie does for me.
All I could think of that entire scene was Ben Stiller and Robert Downey Jr. That's all I could think of. like holding his limbs and like crying all over.
I mean, it is like Tropic Thunder does such a good job of making fun of movies like this. But like,
jobs, you trained as well.
I love that scene.
Yeah,
and then he goes fires the gun.
Yeah, the gun that
and
was
it's
like
epic.
As a kid, that was awesome.
He's just every scene he's in is great. His scene with Beckinsale is great, and then when he walks in the funeral, he's like, "Hey, Captain." Like I was saying this to you, I was like, basically most of what Cuba Gooding Jr. does succeeds with him not even acting.
Yes, thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Most of what Cuba does in this movie that succeeds doesn't even require him acting. It requires him literally standing, saluting, or like looking.
Yep.
And they're just like inserts.
shots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Michael Bay was
exactly,
probably
inserts.
just like,
Yeah.
we need to pick up, Cuba looking over here. Shoot it again.
Do it again.
Bigger. Light it more. Cuba,
More lights.
Cuba, look harder. Like that's like most of what he does. In fact, the scene that he's given the most to work with, he kind of overacts it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I still fucking loved it. It was so sweet.
Oscar winner.
Yeah, exactly.
Oscar winner Cuba Gooding Jr.
And this is only a mere few years after he won his Oscar. I was saying to you,
I know, that's what's so weird about it, is it almost feels like, I mean, you know that it couldn't be because the movie's too big and it's Bay and all that, so it's not like one that they filmed and then shelved.
Yeah.
Obviously, because a $140 million movie, you don't do that with movies that big, but it did feel like his role was surprisingly small for being the most successful actor in the movie.
so here's
Awards-wise.
Here's the question for you. This is because this is fucking crazy, right?
Huh.
We know Cuba now with the OJ story has had a little bit of a comeback.
Yeah.
And then we also know that he's had a lot of like very publicized issues.
Yes.
That are not good and gross.
He's a problem with drinking.
Yeah, and also groping women.
While he's drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you go back to his prime, like when he was like an actor and not getting headlines for that other stuff.
Uh-huh.
What are the 3 best things Cuba Gooding Jr. did in his fucking prime? Don't make fun of radio. Go to what are the ones that are like the actual roles? There's 3 movies that come to mind for me. That's it.
Hey, coach. All right, so obviously you got to go with Jerry.
Jerry's number 1.
Got to go Jerry. Men of Honor, anybody with Robert De Niro?
Okay, that's fair. It doesn't,
No, not that. I guess As Good as It Gets.
that's number 2.
Yeah. And then the third one is it's gonna hit me in the, what is it?
This.
Oh, this. Yeah. Okay.
That feels like they're the 3. I was honestly thinking. I was like, okay, so you got Men of Honor you can throw in there.
You're saying other than this.
You got like you can throw in like Instinct. I remember he's in with like Anthony Hopkins. He's in like he's in a few movies around that time that I think he was getting roles, but he's definitely memorable and As Good as It Gets. That's a Best Picture nominee. It's like he's a significant role he's good in. He plays like a real character. He's obviously great in Jerry. And this was a really big movie. Everyone saw this movie, and he has a memorable part in this movie. He's like doesn't have a lot of screen time.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, they definitely highlight him quite a bit in their trailer, and like when people talk about this movie, he's definitely it. So for me, mine's kind of like it's a guilty fist pump for me because it's the total left right playing chicken thing, but it's when they're actually out on the battlefield.
They do it anyway.
They do it anyway. They do it again. But then the Japanese ships, they all run into each other, like the planes, and it actually looks kind of awesome.
Yeah,
like all 4 of them collide, and they're deep into shit.
It's almost like Michael Bay made like a snuff film with real planes and people.
Yeah.
He's just like, all right, guys, just run these planes into each other.
Just kill them.
Real pilots. It's okay.
There was the one moment when like the Arizona's overflowing, and it's like they have like a cut of a dude where like the wall breaks in and like it throws him across the room and he's just covered in water. I'm like, did they just kill that stunt guy?
Yeah.
Like, that guy, how did he get out of there?
Yeah, I mean the epic quality of the attack of Pearl Harbor is wild. It's really good. It's
What Dreams May Come. That's another big one.
Okay,
that was another one. I remember that. So
yeah,
those are our fist bump moments.
Those are our fist bump moments. So I think we'll get into the next bit of the show here. Next bit of the show, we're going to talk. We are going to talk star profiles. We're going to play a few games here. I think we will get into star profiles. We can talk quickly. Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
3 movies that he had done before this: Balance, Reindeer Games, Boiler Room. I think this period of Ben Affleck's career is remembered very distinctly for one reason, and it's that he had done Good Will Hunting in 1997, and after Good Will Hunting, there's a series of movies that come out, including Armageddon, a couple years before this, that are trying to make Ben Affleck into a big-time A-list movie star. And this is the peak of that moment. This is the peak of, like, young, sexy heartthrob. He looks really young in this movie.
He does. He looks really good in this. He's, like, in great shape. He's doing the whole, like, pretty boy with an attitude, but trying to do the comedy thing, like, early on. It's all... I mean, this movie, if let's say he pulls like an Oscar-worthy performance, this movie showcases so much, like the range from the beginning to the end of what you could do as one actor in this movie. It's very appealing.
I mean, I said to Alex Kessler, who's a return guest of this show, that this movie, the thing about the romance, I was like, this movie is like 90 minutes romance. He was like, it was supposed to be Titanic. That's what he was going for. He wanted this movie to be that.
But you don't give a shit about anyone.
No, but Titanic is a huge amount of romance and then a big explosion.
Yes.
And so like that's I think what the movie's supposed to be and what it was supposed to be at the time. It's just we remember it obviously very differently now. So it's only a few years later that Affleck has that run of like Jersey Girl, Geely, Paycheck, and
Reindeer Games,
Daredevil, and Surviving Christmas. And like he just, whatever, it nosedives. So then the Hartnett you've got with Town and Country, Blow Dry, Here on Earth, and we're going to talk about Hartnett in just a second. But I've never seen any of those movies.
Neither have I. I haven't even heard of two of them.
He's only 22 or 23 when he's in this.
Really?
He's young.
God damn, he's a baby.
Yeah, he's very young. And so then Kate Beckinsale, The Golden Bowl, Broke Down Palace, Last Days of Disco. I remember Days of Disco, and I definitely remember Broke Down Palace.
Yeah, I remember Broke Down Palace. That was a big one.
Yeah, her career blew up after this.
Underworld was massive for her, and she's just amazing. Like, she really is. If she were younger, she would have been Linda Carter in the Avengers. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead, she ends up being
Peggy Carter.
Or Peggy Carter. Yeah.
Haley Atwell, Peggy Carter, right? That's the actress. Yeah.
She would have been that, I feel like, if this movie was made back in early 2000. I mean, if Captain America was made in the early 2000s. Totally. So what's really interesting about this, so first thing to talk about, what do you want to do? You and Josh Hartnett first?
I think we can ask the question. I think it's a reasonable one to ask, which is, so we were just talking about this, but when this movie came out, we were both 13. We remember the big stars, the guys who were getting really famous at the time, the guys who already were really famous at the time. And that's like, when you're 13 and you're mostly through the lens of, the movies, the internet was not the same as it is now. No. So we had
it was all about movies that people talked about and then just big movies.
And IMDb was like you could look on IMDb. It was a thing that existed. You could look up people's careers. That's like the extent of like movie, and then you could read books and stuff.
And also like what superstars you starred alongside of. Totally. That was a big part of it too.
So we grew up watching Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise and Denzel, and like those are all the guys that were like massive. They had been really big for 10 years. And you see Hartnett coming up, and he's not as big as Ben Affleck. He's kind of an up and comer. He's a little bit of a nobody when this movie comes out. And then he has a few really big years. We were talking about some of the movies, right? Like
it's massive. So he goes, excuse me. So before this, the things that he did that you would have heard of were The Faculty in 98 and The Virgin Suicides in 99. So this comes out in 2001. Immediately after that, he does O, which is, it's a big movie. People like that,
Yeah.
Othello.
It's a big teen movie.
He also does, in 2001, two shorts, whatever. Black Hawk Down. Huge. 40 Days and 40 Nights in 2002. Hollywood Homicide with Harrison Ford in 2003. Wicker Park in 4. Sin City in 5. Lucky Number 11 in 6. Black Dahlia in 6.
That's where I think it falls off, right?
I mean, he does 30 Days a Night in 2007. Maybe that's like the true end of it.
Yeah.
But like Black Dahlia was supposed to be really good.
It was unwatchable.
Really bad.
Yeah.
It was really bad. I
saw a lot of those movies in theaters. I remember thinking at the time he's a movie star. He's famous. I even saw 40 Days a Night or 40 Days 40 Nights. I'm pretty sure.
I like 40 Days and 40 Nights. I love Shannon Sussman.
Yeah.
I don't think, but see, the thing that's crazy about me with Josh Hartnett is that it doesn't feel like he doesn't have the thing that you need. It feels like he does have movie star charisma.
Definitely.
And he definitely has the looks for it. I actually think he has the talent to do what he would need to do to be that type of guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that he's done since all this happened, right, is that he's in Penny Dreadful for like a couple years. That's and I didn't watch that show, but people like that show. He's in over 20 episodes of it.
I never hear them talk about him in it, but I do hear people like that show.
So he can't be that old. If he's 22, 23 when he's making this movie, and this movie's, 01, we said, it's only 18 years ago. I mean, Josh Hartnett's in his early 40s. He's like maybe 42 or something. Like, he's at the age right now in his career that you see a lot of those guys that when we were watching, I just talked about Tom Cruise. In 2001, Tom Cruise was like 42.
Dude, I just have to say this. He was 42 in 2001?
Something like that. He's around there. I mean, he's basically the age that Hartnett is now. Like Hanks, all those guys that were in their prime then, that's the age he is right now. He could be doing that type of shit.
So there's someone in the chat here called Wiener Schnitzel.
Okay, here we go.
And Wiener's actually making some pretty good points. He said the biggest mistake in his entire career was turning down Batman Begins. He was Nolan's first choice for Bruce Wayne and Batman in Begins. Can you imagine what that would have done for his career?
Yeah, it's a totally different story. I mean, Bale wouldn't have even been...
I mean, Bale can continue to do what he did. Like, obviously, doing the Dark Knight trilogy put Christian Bale on the map again in the sense of like being in a different way.
Yeah.
But like, I still could see him being in The Big Short and Ford versus Ferrari and The Wrestler. You know what I mean? But that is crazy.
Oh, the fighter.
I mean, the fighter.
Yeah.
It's crazy for me to think that Josh Hartnett turns down Batman.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is like, remember when we had John Sheck on the show? We were talking about people's careers. We were talking about how stuff is put together. I think we were talking about Cage and his run. And he said it's not as much about necessarily the talent. It's about the team you have around you. He said those types of runs that you're talking about, they are carefully orchestrated by a manager, an agent, an agent. Like, that stuff is you're being advised on the roles to take, the roles you're being offered, when you're shooting them, when they're coming out. That's stuff that you're having those conversations all the time, because that stuff is really important. The public makes decisions based on your viability at the box office, based on your last movie or two, when they're coming out, who you're in it with. Like, and it sounds like Hartnett didn't have a great team around him, because what person in their right mind turns down Batman when the previous two movies that the guy directed were Memento and Insomnia? It's not like Insomnia is a bad movie.
No, and Memento is very
great.
Good. Yeah.
Like, he's a very interesting director.
And you've been away from Batman for long enough. And it's a totally different type of story. So that is actually very, very shocking. So the other thing we wanted to do, well, okay, so the true question is, can we see him having an A-list resurgence? Well, he does have a movie coming up. That
kind of a weird James Franco directed, like, big ensemble cast looking thing.
He needs to turn in a tour de France, as they say.
Nice.
He does. He needs to. I think he really needs to stand out in this movie, because it seems like a movie that people will watch. Penny Dreadful seemed like the moment that he would have been noticed again.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what got him this opportunity to be in this James Franco movie.
Yeah.
But he really needs to stand out, or else he's just going to be forgotten about as another generic-looking white guy that was really good and had a nice run.
I think we could see him. I think there's a lot of, like, this would be the path I would see if I had to guess how Josh Hartnett would have the comeback. Josh Hartnett would have to have the like fifth lead small supporting role in a movie that a lot of people saw. So it would be like, either it would be like the third lead in some smaller indie, like the Florida Project type of movie that gets a lot of Oscar attention, and he's pretty good in it, or it's that he is the Leo Bibb character in Ford
I was
Ferrari.
going to say that he's the that's so funny, because I was gonna relate it to Ford versus Ferrari too. I was going to say that he would be, Leo Bibb makes more sense for his age, but like being in the movie as much as the older, like, car mechanic guy.
Yeah.
That guy.
Right.
You know, like, because that guy stood out a lot to me.
Yeah, me too.
He just did his job, but he was so good at it. He never tried to stand out too much. I love that.
Stole scenes, yeah.
It's good directing, too.
And that's how it's like a 2-3 step process, because Josh Hartnett's just not being looked at by directors right now to be in the kind of roles that he can lead in. He needs to have a couple supportings, and then maybe he gets cast as the second lead in something big. But I think it's a couple-year process. He would have to put in some real work, because, like...
Yeah, Yash just said he needs to have his Nightcrawler. Yeah,
I mean, it's
but
always...
that also comes after doing years of work, like you said, like Prisoners. He needs to have his Prisoners.
And again, like, it's always with people like this, what happens with, like, the hamster wheel of Hollywood is, like, you're running on it. Like, once you fall off that, like, B-list hamster wheel, it's pretty hard to get back on, especially if you're a guy like him. In his 40s, he'll have a better shot than he would have had in his, like, early 30s, because, like, when you're no longer the hot new flavor, you have to kind of crawl back by doing some interesting stuff. And that's a little bit of, like, we talk about how ridiculous Nick Cage is.
It's like what McConaughey did.
Yes.
You know?
And we talk about how ridiculous Nick Cage is. You know, he is ridiculous. But the thing about Nick Cage is that he constantly is taking weird roles. He's constantly doing strange movies and weird projects.
Well, Godfather Part 2 on this one.
Yeah, right? Or he's in Spider-Verse as noir Spider-Man is such a good example of the kind of weird shit he does to stay on people's radar, where you're like, literally Nick Cage tomorrow could be offered the lead in a major director's movie.
100%.
He could get nominated for Best Actor, and everybody in the world, once again, would be like, he never fell off the hamster wheel.
Yeah, and exactly. No one would be surprised that it happened.
Feels like he's been out of the mainstream really for 10 years, but, like, that's the difference, is that Hartnett never was that guy, and so we don't know if he has the chops. Nick Cage obviously has the chops. So I think that's kind of the question, is it just, he'd have to be at it and orchestrate the right run. A 2-3 movie process, maybe a premium HBO style show he's really good in or something.
So then, if you talk about having the chops, let's just get on to the other one, the other conversation we're going to have, which is overly sieged, underly sieged, properly sieged on Alec Baldwin, who has had an incredibly unique career. I mean, that's kind of the word, that the hot button word of the day when you talk about Alec Baldwin's career, is it's incredibly unique. And we'll probably just skip over production development today, even though there's some interesting stuff. But we are getting towards the end of the show, and I do want to finish this conversation. So I think personally that Alec Baldwin is properly rated. I think the amount of attention that he's gotten in the later half of his career. Now, you got to remember, this guy was a superstar in the 80s, right? Like late 80s, early 90s, Alec Baldwin is the guy. You talk about Josh Hartnett and Ben Affleck in the early 2000s. Baldwin had that phase. And then it kind of tapered off and fell off, as a lot of these guys do. But then you talk about his comedy resurgence. I mean, yeah, everyone says SNL and him playing Trump is really what was huge, but it was 30 Rock. 30 Rock is what came out, and it was like, oh my God.
This guy's amazing.
He's amazing. He's hilarious. He's winning Emmys. Like, he is so freaking talented. That was the moment that it felt like, okay, so now Alec Baldwin, and now, you know, he just had his roast. So he's gone onto this level of becoming like a Chuck Norris, you know, like becoming just like a icon. I think that he's not underrated, because it's not like he needs more work.
Yeah.
And he's not overrated, because he's great. He really is great, and I love what he does, and I like seeing him pop up in movies like Motherless Brooklyn, just to see that he's still trying to do it as an actor, not just doing like the comedy thing. Not saying that comedy isn't acting, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. I think he's properly rated. It's not like people are overcasting him or undercasting him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where exactly the drop off happens, like where he just goes from being exactly what we're talking about to like the next phase of his career, and it feels like it's sometime right around this movie, honestly. Like, looking at it and remembering him in Notting Hill, he's the asshole boyfriend to Julia Roberts' character in Notting Hill.
Oh yeah,
he shows up in the hotel room and he's playing an asshole movie star.
Yep,
that is what he's doing, right? It was almost like the worst possible look. Like he's a prick. He cheats on his girlfriend in the movie. Like,
yeah, he's just really bad to her.
He's kind of just playing Alec Baldwin,
right?
And like it's funny, like it's a little bit of a portal into then what immediately happens.
It's too meta.
He stops being like likable Alec Baldwin. He kind of starts being kind of fuckhead Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if I'm answering the question, I go underrated, because the more I've sort of thought about Baldwin's career over the years, the more I've paid attention. Most of that older stuff that you look at, like, again, in retrospect, some of it seems really big. A lot less of those movies seem like big deals now than they seemed like probably then.
Yeah.
There's only a few that are really significant. Like he's in Beetlejuice, he's in Glengarry, he's in Hunt for Red October, he's in Working Girl. It's like the late 80s, he's like in some pretty big stuff. But a lot of the other stuff, like The Getaway or like Miami Blues, like those aren't really big movies. They were just like dramas at the time that people cared about. People don't care about them now.
But he's always had the opportunity to be in like major movie. I mean, like, you don't just get put in a Scorsese movie just because,
right?
You know,
and that's, I mean, so what he does in The Departed is a great example of why I think he's so underrated. It's like that he has some comedy.
You don't smoke? You smoke?
Yeah,
I love that scene.
Is it people don't trust a guy with an immaculate record?
I have an immaculate record.
Yeah. Like, he just has his comic timing so dialed in a way that I think most guys that are he's so dynamic in drama and he's so dynamic in comedy, right? Name me a guy that can be a sex icon, can be that kind of masculine in Glengarry, and can poke fun at himself the way that he does in the second half of his career. There's almost no one in history I can think of that is
Val Kilmer.
Incredible. Yeah. And he was masculine. He had the same kind of masculinity. He was really good. But like Baldwin
and he also got Boss Baby. You know, that's huge.
Yeah.
So he's making so much money and getting cast in so much stuff. And Boss Baby has a sequel, right?
I think Alec Baldwin's A-list again.
He's definitely A-list.
Fully A-list.
He's 100% A-list. So that's what I'm saying is, like, there's these people that kind of transcend the list because of who they are, you know, and like Willie Nelson is a guy that's not A-list, but he's A-list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Because of who Willie Nelson is.
Yeah, it's weird. So I would say under sieged is how I feel about Baldwin, because I think he doesn't get enough credit for the fact that, like, he literally is as famous now as the out-of-shape, older, poke fun at himself guy as he was when he was straight up A-list sex icon leading movies guy.
Yeah.
And like that's not something you see very often. Most of those guys who were like the sex icon dramatic lead in the late 80s and the 90s, if they put on a lot of weight and they stop being that guy. They become like a very, very deep supporting character in some ensemble movie. And, you know, it's Kevin Costner and he's the guy in Hidden Figures that's like championing for the women, right? But he's like the 6th or 7th lead in the movie. That's the kind of role that those guys get.
Right.
And like feels like Baldwin is so much more significant at this age than you would expect him to be. So
So now that it's just getting past 2 o'clock here, so we're going to just talk really, really quickly through a few things. And if you want to read about production development, you really should on this movie. It's pretty fascinating. Anytime that you have a movie that's this historically accurate with that massive scale of the ships and the aircrafts, it all has to be okayed through the U.S. government. So go and read a bit about that. The executive of Disney at the time, Dick Cook, said that there were so many budgetary fights with Bay that Bay would walk on several occasions, and he said that I think Pearl Harbor was one of the most difficult shoots of modern history. So pretty interesting to hear about that. It cost $140 million to make, as we just said. It was produced by Disney. It opened on a 3-day weekend in May, a 3-day Memorial Day weekend in May 25th, 2001. Grossed $198 million domestic, $250 worldwide, for a grand total of just under $500 million, and it made $75 million its opening weekend.
It's actually kind of astounding that they decided to release this as a summer blockbuster and they didn't wait to release this the weekend of December 7th as like maybe he just knew it was so historically incorrect that he didn't want to try to immortalize it as like, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. I mean, it's funny. This movie has a 6.2 on IMDb and a 66% by audience. That's remarkably high.
Yeah,
for a movie this is hated as much as this movie.
The critics gave it a 24, which makes more sense. But yeah, the 6.2 and the 6.6 are pretty shocking. Favorite line? Do you want to sneak one in?
I gotta say, the guy looks up at Rafe and Danny and he says, "Those are some smooth aces."
Those are some smooth aces.
I just don't really know how that's a real line that happened in this movie. It's like such a ridiculous thing to say, and it's also just like the whole entire first 10 minutes of this movie has all of the elements of Top Gun. It has the campy lines, it has the latent homosexuality, and it has the hotshot pilots. It's like literally he was like, "I'm gonna just do 10 minutes of Top Gun to start Pearl Harbor."
Yep,
that's what it feels like, and that line is like, who talks like that?
Like, yeah, no one does. That guy, the guy in this Michael Bay movie.
That'd be like you and I hanging out with our buddies, and like we all like are at the bar, and like two of our buddies go like walk to the bar to like get us drinks, and I look at you and I'm like, God, those guys are just so confident and handsome.
Damn, Marshall's really been working out.
Yeah, it's like I guess you could say it, but like I don't know why talks that way about their friends.
Okay, all right, Ben. Yeah, it's a great line. I've got a couple. There was one I actually really loved. Was Attack from Japan imminent? They're only an hour late. Like, yeah, it was the idea of like what could happen in an hour.
Yeah,
how much shit could go wrong in 1 hour. I loved that. There's also the great romance line, loving you kept me alive.
Yeah,
which Affleck says. And then of course when Baldwin's talking to Affleck and Hartnett about the secret mission, he goes, "Yes, sir. It's the type of mission where you get medals, but they send them to your relatives."
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, people are gonna die.
Baldwin has so many. He's like the Navy wants me to sit this one out. They say I'm too valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, is Tom Sizemore just in every war movie ever?
Probably, yeah.
I think he just is.
Yeah.
He's just like an angry sergeant.
Get these things on the deck, ladies. I'm going to find this shotgun in an airplane.
Exactly. Okay, so there's 3 action movie categories: totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, and ridiculously legitimate. The categories explain themselves. Ben, what do you think?
It's totally ridiculous. I mean, there's an hour of this movie that I could argue is not, but there's 2 hours of this movie that is. And the fact this movie is 3 hours and 4 minutes is offensive. So it's definitely totally ridiculous.
Yeah. Jarvie just wrote, Pride of the Pacific? Who are you? Tears of the skies. I actually like that line too, even though it's really early on.
Also, Baldwin's whole speech that he gives about like when the guy's like, what do you do if you get captured?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I can't answer that question for you, but I'll tell you what I would do. And he gives this whole thing about I wasn't made to be captured. I would pick the best military target I could, and I'd fly my plane right into it. And then he's like, but that's just what I would do.
Yeah.
That's just me. It's pretty sweet.
I love that Ryan just wrote, "Don't tell me it can't be done." Talking about FDR. You guys need to read about Franklin Delano Roosevelt and how much he concealed his disability and how he would never have ever done that and how disrespectful it was that they used that in a movie. But that's neither here nor there. There's only one thing left to cover on the show.
Yes, and it is called The Pitch. And this is sweet. We're covering Ford Ferrari.
Yeah, we're doing it.
We've covered Rush. We've covered Warrior. It's a sports movie. It feels like it has a lot of elements of an action movie. It's great. Go see it this weekend in theaters, guys. I cannot say enough good things about it.
You guys gotta go watch it.
We're gonna go see it again, right?
I'm gonna watch it again. And you talk about being able to, like, for some reason with this movie and with Knives Out, I just felt like a normal dude sitting in the theater just kind of getting blown away.
Yeah, me too. You know? I love that. I could not say enough good things about it. So we're going to go about 1 to 2 minutes long here just because I do want to talk about the action face-off. It feels really important. I want to make sure everybody knows what's going on with this. Drew and I have a Patreon. It's called patreon.com/teamaction, and we have a new show we're doing starting next Sunday, it's going to be every single Sunday.
Yep.
We'll probably miss some weeks for the holidays, but we are going to be trying to do this every Sunday. And it's a debate show. It is a debate style show where we are talking about the best all-time things. And it's going to be 4 patrons debating against one of us, with the other of us judging the show. It's a Google Hangouts show. It only is going to be patrons competing against us. There'll be 3 patrons at the captain and above level. You can go and check out those levels at patreon.com. It's basically the third highest, second highest, and highest tiers available in the Action Army. Will be the 3 of the 5 people picked, and 1 random patron at any level. We're going to select you, and this next week it's going to be top 10 comedies of the 90s on the Action Guys.
Yes, okay.
So the argument is, what is the best? What is the best comedy of the 90s? You're going to be arguing for yours. So if you want to compete in this, we've already got a bunch of submissions, but send them in now. We haven't started picking. Send in 2 choices, your top 2 comedies of the 90s you'd want to argue for. Make sure you're a patron at patreon.com/teamaction. Send your emails to actionindustriesbrand@gmail.com with the subject line, top comedy. And any subject line that makes us know what you're talking about. And pitch your top 2 options with 2 sentences about why you want to do it. And we will let you guys know by next weekend if you were part of it. You're going to be fighting against Drew. Drew is going to be fighting.
Bring it on. I love 90s comedies.
We did the first one last Sunday. I argued for the best Jack Nicholson role. I lost in the finals. It was super fun. The show is great. We've already had a bunch of the action generals and captains on the show. So go cast your votes. Once again, actionindustriesbrand@gmail.com. Guys, thanks for watching. We're going to have a quick shout out to a few people before we wrap the show.
Yeah, we've got our generals here, so we're going to go first with the 5-star generals, the inaugural 5-star general: Brianne Chandler, Jeremiah Morris, Mac Ryan, John Getz, Jake Iacovetta, Lucas Shashek, Alex Shashek, Kyle Grandinetti, and of course Paul Denuzio. A big time shout out and salute to you 5-star generals. But we've also got our amazing generals of the Action Army: Andrew Hayes, Billy Belford, John Patterson, Kelsey Kirkland, Nick Gilmore, Cody Seal, Kyle Hilbert, Tamir Buddha, AJ Lancaster, Sari Laman Maki, and Danny Joyce as the final general. So big salute to you as well. Thank you guys so much. Check out patreon.com/teamaction. Join us in the Action Face-Off. I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to ruin you in debate.
Fight against Drew, guys. It's going to be a good time. Good time. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network. Not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.